Hey, welcome to part two of our series on what questions are different for 2026 as a CEO, as a business owner, than they were in 2025. Thing is, as Tony Robbins likes to say, the quality of your questions determines quality of your life. And in 2026, the questions that need to be posed around AI are different from the questions in 2025 because the technology is changing on a daily basis. Well, pretty close. Claude Anthropic just announced Claude Work. Claude Co-work, which is another big breakthrough, compressing the amount of time that it takes for coding teams, developers, creators to get work out the door, and compressing it dramatically. As an owner, as a CEO, that's not necessarily the thing, though. It's hugely important. Here's one of the key questions. This is part two. I'm Wolf. Thanks for being here. This is live, so if you got questions, comments, we can talk about it while we're doing this. I've got some notes over here that I'm going to refer to. So here's the thing: what's different? Last year a big question was how do we get ROI out of our AI applications and our AI investments? What we're doing with AI. That's not the question for 2026. What happened in 2025, according to McKinsey, only 6% of companies really were what they called, let's see, how's this stated? Only 6% of companies qualify as AI high performers. What happens to the other 94%? And which are you in? Here's what makes the difference between being perhaps part of that 6% and versus being part of the rest of it. It's the question for 2026 is what capabilities are we building that leverage the knowledge and experience within our company, within our teams, that creates a defensible strategic advantage in the marketplace, or from the tech world, builds a moat around the company. Here's an example. Manus in March actually of 2025 released its super agent. And they didn't create a new AI. They just built a wrapper, or they built an application around ChatGPT 4. In December of 2025, as you're very likely aware, Meta bought Manus for over $2 billion. They haven't announced the exact figure. It's estimated somewhere between $2 and $3 billion. So that's from releasing a product to $2 billion in 8 months. That's pretty fast. Why did Meta put so much money into this new company? It's because of the experience that they built. It's the knowledge that they built a moat around what they were doing by being one of the very, very few teams on the planet that can successfully build an application like that around one of the leading LLMs, one of the leading AI models that we're all using, right? We're all using the same tools. So what's going to make the difference? The difference is going to be in the questions that you ask, the perspective that goes along with that. And in this case, Manus's team built a moat around what they were doing, around their company, around their product offering, because of all the experience they amassed in finding out what worked, what didn't, how to keep refining it, what the market experience was, because they also went to a huge, huge user base in that amount of time because they released a great product, right? We can't be pushing more of this AI slop, as it's being called, out into the marketplace. That won't fly. But we can focus on what is it within our companies that we can really leverage and create strategic advantage around, then look at how to begin applying AI with our teams. That's some questions that we'll deal with going forward. But let's keep following the thread on this one. So that's the different question. A formal way to say it would be, what capabilities are we building that compound over time and create defensible strategy? Or, what skills are we building that creates a moat around our company that can't be easily replicated by another company or a brand new team that's never worked with anything but AI? How scary is that? That can do the same thing as we're doing, using the same tools that we're using. We've all got access to the same AI tools for the most part. So how do we do something different with that? So let's talk about what that looks like in the real world. So one is the first step is fast experimentation, right? ChatGPT's been out for 3 years and 3 years and a couple of months. what are you doing with that? What has your team learned through the use of ChatGPT? How is that knowledge being spread through the organization? And how are you mining those experiences in order to find the stuff that creates really big value for your customers, for your company, creates that moat? Because now you're applying what you are experts at. And this is the second thing. What experience are you building? What knowledge are you leveraging? Right? What is it about your company that makes you viable and unique in the marketplace? See, these are the kind of questions that AI is going to drive us to consider in order to be viable in the marketplace. When I was on the C-17 aircraft program, heck of a plane. That's a whole nother story for another time. Well, when I was working there, one of the things that we were able to do and that I had an opportunity to be part of was change the way that we were dealing that functional departments dealt with each other and started that process and how we changed the way that those silos are defined. We're breaking down the walls between the silos because we had advanced technology in the computer-aided design system. So that allowed us to change design and development quickly. Well, how do we do that? A big key to that was having a users group for the design system that we were applying. They're bringing this new system in, doing major upgrades, bringing new tools in. The users group allowed us to peer-to-peer deal with questions about how do I get this done? You're doing this over here. It's like, hey, how did you do that? Or I learned this here. Let me show you. So it filled in training gaps, helped people find training that they needed. So it's like, I don't know how to do this. Like, great, go here. There's a training library. Here's how you get access to the training that you need. Come back. We'll talk about the advanced stuff. So there was this whole process of learning, internal coaching that leveraged and accelerated the use of the system and the advantage we got from that. Because ended up with a system when we were going through the upgrade that we were in the process of at the time that really had new capabilities that almost no other company had at that time. So how do you do that with your company? What is it that's your equivalent to that? Doing fast experimentation helps lead you to that, because here's one of the things that happens. You have to work with the tools in order to see how the tools can affect your business, how you can adapt the tool use, how you can adapt the business, what new opportunities that has. We'll talk about that more in a second. Build experience with, build your experience and knowledge. Checking my notes here. See, that was one of the things with Meta, sorry, it's my Midwestern accent coming in there. Meta was really focused on buying the experience, not the product, not the service. The Manus team created an incredible service that was wildly popular, very effective. It was one of the first, if not the first, commercially viable, production-ready super agents, or in other words, it was a general use autonomous AI agent that could then be retuned to do a lot of different kinds of tasks. Very powerful. Didn't do workflows, but the agent itself, there's a whole thing around that on the tech and whatnot. That's not the issue here. The issue is the knowledge they gained from building what they needed, the wrapper around ChatGPT, in order to be able to do this powerful AI agent. That is what Meta was interested in buying and was willing to pay billions for, because it's very, very rare in the marketplace. What is your skill, your knowledge, your thing that your company's doing that's very rare in the marketplace that makes you viable over other competitors? Then start looking at how to leverage the experience that your team has gained from experimenting with AI into leveraging that knowledge base. This is where the sustainable gains are coming from. One of the questions I've been asking for the last year and a half is, what can we say is going to be true in 3 years? Because the tech's changing so fast, the business models are changing so fast, the opportunities are changing so fast that there's not a whole lot that we can say. One of the things that looks like it's going to be true 2 years, 3 years down the road is where that deep knowledge that you have, or what the tech world calls domain knowledge, so that deep knowledge and experience that you have of what you do that makes you unique, where that crosses with your use of AI, that's the, I was going to say PowerPoint, but don't want to do death by PowerPoint slides. Sorry, I digress. This is exciting stuff. This is a breakthrough perspective. That intersection is where You can recraft how your business functions so that you can do things that other people can't do. You can bring that knowledge and experience to bear. And doing that requires the third point that I wanted to leave you with today. You got to lead with clear objectives. What does that mean? So it's like, how does your company deliver value? And what value do you deliver to the marketplace, to your clients, to your team members, to your stakeholders, the communities you serve? And it's something we talk about here at Adventure CEO, because CEO also stands for continual expanding opportunities for our families, our teams, and the communities that we serve, and our clients and customers, which are part of that larger community. So, how can you do that differently? Excuse me. How could you do that differently? It's not about applying what tool or how to apply the tools. What can we do differently? What does this enable us to do differently? For example, in the late 1990s, when I was involved in product development, again, this was at McDonnell Douglas, we were able to change how we did product development. The theme of integrated product development um, was very big, because we're looking at how can we shorten communication paths, how can we shorten cycle times in the development side, bringing some of the Six Sigma and lean thinking into the product development world. So there were advanced software tools for simulation, for doing advanced, really, really difficult analysis that could be automated and done much more quickly instead of days, weeks, months. Now you're talking hours, maybe a couple of days to run, and also using virtual reality so that we could mock up products before we even did a drawing, let alone actually started to create prototypes. That was a huge, huge shift. That we did that by looking at the tools, grabbing best practices where it was working, and being able to integrate those into not the process, but new process. Saying, look, if this allows us to simulate actually having the product, where does that go in our product development process? How does that change the way that the different specialties, the different engineers that need to be involved in that process, the manufacturing folks can now be involved in that process in ways that they never could months, or when you're talking aircraft, perhaps years in advance of where they could have before, because there wasn't anything physical to look at for producibility. It's harder to envision what a 2D drawing is going to look like when you're looking for producibility. And experience can do a lot, but it allowed us to leverage the knowledge that people had in a different way, and to now be able to sit around a virtual product and talk about it together and leverage everybody's knowledge at one time. Moved way faster. The F-18 redesign could be a good example of that. They changed how fast aircraft get designed. It was a major redesign. They did it in 3 years, came in ahead of schedule, underweight, under budget, unheard of for that particular type of product. Weight is a very big issue because it affects how long you can fly on the gas you got available, so to speak. But we changed the relationships between the people that needed to be involved in the product development process. And we're able to bring in new people that had critical knowledge that saved us millions, because now we weren't making tooling changes or maintenance changes out in the field that otherwise we likely would have been making, because we could catch it up front. So think about that. I'm checking my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything here. I wanted to keep this real, keep it short, and have it something that's useful to you. Again, this is part 2. So it's just like AI, it's changing on a daily basis, right? This whole Claude Cowork thing is huge. That just how they developed it was 10 days, apparently. It took a team of 4, 10 days to create this and get it out in, technically it's in test, but it's out in users' hands, in customers' hands, so they can start getting that feedback. That's another lesson we'll talk about more down the road, and questions around it. So how are you shifting your questions in 2026? You got to be asking different questions, because the tech has changed, the competition has changed, the marketplace is changing with it. Make sure you're looking at, what capabilities you can leverage to build a strategic moat around your service and product offering, because you've got competitors that are using the same AI tools. You've got companies that are staffed with people that have never known anything other than AI. That's going to bring new stuff to the table, and competitors that could potentially blindside you in an unpleasant way. So Think about that. Love to see read your comments. I respond to all of them, and put a comment below about what you're doing. And if you want more information, particularly to connect with some of the people that I'm getting these ideas from, I'm learning from, put a comment below and I'll respond to you and we'll get that info to you. I'm Wolf. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.